My name is Rochelle, and you're watching or listening to Box F1 Pod. Welcome to the season finale. What an end of the season showdown we got. It's so crazy that we took this to the very last race. Everyone take a moment and say thank you to McLaren for their very weird strategy and for bringing us this moment. As everyone anticipated, bar anything crazy happening, Lando was going to become champion. And Lando did become champion. Lando, we could be world champions, I said. To quote Charles. Anyway. And honestly, we all know I have my reservations about Lando Norris, but what a well-deserved win for him. And I think it made it even more thrilling that it went down to the wire and that he really earned it. He really fought for it, and we got to see the ways that he's grown come into play to help him secure the championship. Insane, though, that Max lost by 2 points. 2 points away. We're going to talk about everything that happened, mostly about the championship fight and between the top three, because honestly it was one of the most boring races ever. And I think we can all say good riddance to the end of this era of cars and just pray and hope that next season the new regulations will bring us better racing and a better experience for the drivers within the car. With that being said, before we get all up into Abu Dhabi, let's kick things off with the digital warm-up. Lap 1. Lap 1 F1 news. So this is not really news. This is sort of follow-up from Qatar, but there was an interview. Did I talk about this last week? I don't think I talked about this last week. Ollie in the media pen was doing an interview, and he was asked why he retired the car, and he looks at the interviewer and just goes, for the longest time, stops going, just turns to his PR person, and they whisper behind, their faces block each other's mouths. They whisper. He turns back straight dead on to the camera and the interviewer and goes, "To save engine." And he looks like that emoji of the man that's just a stick. And it's just so one of the funniest moments that Ollie has had, and he's had some funny moments this year. In less funny news, Kimi finally spoke about the whole incident last week when people accused him of throwing his race to ruin Max's chance of the championship, because he hasn't spoken out about it or posted about it or anything. And he talked about it a lot. He was like, it's not just a problem with me. The drivers get hate all the time for this. And it was just really nice to get messages from a lot of the drivers, from Max. He got a message from GP. He got a message from Laurent. He was like, everyone apologize. And I wasn't really blaming them. He was like, drivers deal with these kinds of comments all the time. That's really not right. And I really hope we start doing something to make it easier. And he was asked what Max said. And he was like, I cannot really say what he said because it contains some bad words, but it just said, don't worry about these people because they're brainless, which sounds like a Max Verstappen answer. But love that everyone reached out. I mean, obviously they all reached out. I don't know why. I think because he's just so small and adorable and young, but everyone seems extra overprotective of Kimi Antonelli, across the board. Every mistake he's made this season, none of the drivers were mad. They looked sad or dejected that their race was ruined or whatever, but none of them were mad, which they would be if it was anyone else. And I guess Kimi just brings out some sort of maternal instinct in everyone, because they all just want to be oh, Kimi. And he truly doesn't mean any harm by anything. He is just a kid. But I do love that everyone rallied up behind him, and that even though he didn't comment on it, he's not upset about it. Also, Yuki posted about him losing his spot in F1. He's going to be Red Bull's reserve and test driver next year. So that puts to rest the rumors about him going to IndyCar. He said he's sad, but he said he's not done yet. It is sad that that his career was so tied to Honda, and that he's going out of F1 driving this hunk of junk. It's not his fault, but I do feel bad for him. Also, I think I missed the announcement for this, But today I learned that this is the last year for Renault, and next year Mercedes will provide the engine for Alpine. So that could be a positive change of pace for them, depending on, well, it's going to be as positive as this for everyone else. Also, this was the last, lots of lasts. This was the last race for DRS. And I believe the last person to use DRS was Kimi Antonelli. I know that there's a petition started by Jenson Button himself for him to be the last person to press DRS ceremonially at Abu Dhabi testing next week, because he was the first person to press DRS, which would be a cute circle moment. What's the term? Would be a cute full circle moment. That's the word. Moving on, lap 2, off track F1. So this was, I almost thought this was a joke when this came up on my For You page, but a senator in Australia was leading a session, and he was like, I don't know who the right person to ask this is, and then sort of directs the question to the Senator of Transportation, and he's like, do you think McLaren is favoring Lando? And it's clear that the entire continent of Australia believes that McLaren is favoring Lando. But the senator sort of chuckles and he's like, well, since my daughter got into F1 recently, girls really are really the future of sport, honestly. I don't know why anyone doubted us. He's like, since my daughter got into sport, this is a very important topic for us at our home. Yes. It seems that way, which is funny. And that was the most funny moment of Australia reacting to Qatar, but there were radio hosts talking about it. There were influencers from Australia talking about it. People are upset. And I did see someone was praying that because Robert Irwin won Dancing with the Stars, that the stars were aligned for Australians to win things. However, I believe we might have used up our win on Robert Irwin, and that was the most positive energy that Australia was getting this year in terms of world championships. But there's always next year. But I did find that quite amusing that this became an issue in the Senate. One thing about Abu Dhabi that we've always come to expect: team dinner. And I love that this is a tradition. I love that almost everyone always comes. They almost have a theme. Everyone was wearing black and white except for Yuki, who was in beige, and that was actually his caption on the post. He's like, some people miss the white shirt memo, but it was a Japanese restaurant. There was a video of someone eating at the restaurant and just filming. He's like, when you're out to dinner, and then every Formula One driver walks by you. They're just casually strolling through this restaurant to, I'm assuming, a back room that could fit all of them. All 17 drivers were there. The 3 that were missing, I believe, were Lance, Fernando, and Nico. I believe Fernando was at some sort of event for rich people, because there was a picture of him with Flavio Briatore and Yannick Sinner at some event. I'm assuming it was thrown by Lawrence, so probably Lance was there as well, or Lance I don't know what Lance's deal is. I understand being antisocial, I understand being an introvert, but this is does he hate all the other drivers? It's very odd that he wouldn't come to this dinner unless he truly had a prior commitment. And I just feel kind of bad for him. You don't like the people you work with, you don't like the work you do, why are you here? Literally, why are you here? Let someone else drive in your seat. Why is this still happening? I'm not about to get into an argument of whether he's a good driver or a bad driver. I think he's a fine driver. And when he cares and when he's passionate, we've seen him do great things, good things, decent things. He doesn't care. It just shows that he's fully checked out. So his performance is also kind of checked out. And it's just a confusing thing for me why he's here. Anyway, apparently Lewis organized and ordered everything. However, Pierre Gasly paid. And I've yet to determine why he was stuck with the check, because at least Lewis is the richest, I think. Maybe he was late. I don't know do they pick it out a name out of a hat? It's not that any of them couldn't afford this dinner. But it's an expensive dinner for 17 drivers in Abu Dhabi. That can't be cheap. It seems that there was significantly less drama at this dinner than last year's dinner. If you recall, this was at the height of the Max and George feud. When allegedly George came in, they had intentionally left the only available chair to be near Max Verstappen, and he took the chair and moved it to the other side of the table. I miss that petty energy, but I also love that they're all getting along right now. Lewis and Max were arm in arm at this dinner, which I loved to see. Even Lando's caption was, "No food was thrown at this dinner." But someone, I think it was ESPN or F1, had done a compilation of all of the captions, because almost all the drivers posted this picture. Guess who did it? Max Verstappen. It's just not his energy. I don't think it's because he didn't have fun. It's just not stuff he posts. Any personal content that he posts is usually a shared post with his girlfriend, whose name just literally slipped my brain. Kelly. It's usually like a partner post with Kelly. But anyway, my favorite caption out of all of these was Oscar's, who captioned it, "In case you don't follow the other 19," which is funny. There was also a separate dinner happening at the same time for Oscar's girlfriend, Lily. She hosted a little WAG birthday dinner. Not all the WAGs were there, but she gave them such wholesome gifts. It was like a little journal. It looked like a journal. Maybe it was a planner, but it looked like a little notebook. And like attached to it was like a watercolor painting of each one of their outfits from the paddock this year. And it was just such a cute touch. And obviously all the girls like posted it, and it was very wholesome. I think the girls that were there were Lily, Alex Albon's girlfriend, Alex, Charles Leclerc's fiance, Kika, Pierre's girlfriend. There was at least a drawing of her. Maggie, I don't know how to say her. Maggie, I think. Lando's girlfriend, and there were a couple of others that were there. Esteban's girlfriend, Flavie. It was a lot like Flavio. Anyway, there was a few girls there, but Rebecca wasn't there, Carlos's girlfriend. But there was pictures of her the next day. It looked like she had brought flowers for Lily and took them over to the McLaren hospitality, which I thought was a very cute touch. The drivers posed for their annual team photo on the track with the chairs, the class of 2025. Looked like it took a long time because they wouldn't stop yapping. And I will say, this is one of the worst pictures of Charles I've ever seen, and that is a very hard feat to accomplish, to make Charles look below average for him. He still looks above average for the majority of people, but it's not the best picture of him. There was also like a clip of Fernando like massaging Oscar's shoulders, and then Lando. He was massaging everyone, honestly. It was quite funny. There was also another driver picture after their GPDA meeting, which, by the way, if you listened to last episode, and I spent the whole time trying to remember what the name of the Drivers Association is, it's Grand Prix Drivers Association, also known as GPDA. Whoops. But they did a whole picture together, but the only person missing there was Fernando, and Lando held up a picture of Fernando on his phone, but it was like really zoomed in, so it was like just fully his face and nothing else. Another fun moment in the media was, look, Max Verstappen literally lives rent-free in Zach Brown's head, and I love it. Zach Brown is so irked by Max Verstappen, but he tries to play it off like it's fun, but he hates him. And he's a little obsessed with him. I don't think I brought this up, but I did talk about the podcast he did a few weeks ago where he talked about how they care more about the team's championship than the driver's championship. They'd rather lose to Max and favor either of the drivers. He talked a lot during that interview. One of the things he did do during that podcast is he described Max as that guy in a horror movie that just as you think he's not coming back, he's back. And then the following week, Max was asked about it during a press conference, and he responded, "Zach can call me Chucky," which is hilarious. And then this week, F1 fans took it a step further, and someone made a giant poster with Chucky in a Red Bull uniform. Obviously, Max is Chucky. And Max thought it was hilarious. And Lewis pointed out, he's like, "I love the Max Chucky poster," which I find amusing because Max also haunted Lewis's dreams for many, many years. But now they're friends. Their friend Lee. They were arm in arm at the driver's dinner. So hopefully that's not how Max appears to Lewis Hamilton anymore. Speaking of, I forgot to mention this, but Toto was asked how long it took for him to get over Abu Dhabi 2021, which, by the way, ESPN and Sky, mostly Sky F1, loves to post every quote that any driver has ever said about Abu Dhabi 2021 during this time of the year. And it's like, and it's always like the negative ones about like, this is not right, this is not fair, like whatever. And like, we just need as a community to move forward from that. It was unfair. It was unjust. Not Max Verstappen's fault. He maximized on the opportunity presented to him and won his first driver's championship. The fault was entirely with the FIA, and it was unfair, but it's not doing anyone any good to continue to delve on this. But anyway, Toto was asked currently, all the quotes from the drivers are like from the past, but Toto was asked currently how long it took for him to get and the team to get over Abu Dhabi 2021, and he's like, we're still not over it. I was talking to Lewis the other day, and we're still not over it, which I get. That moment really fucked with Lewis's mindset, and understandably so. Like, he was this close and was taken away by an unfair application of the rules, an illegal application of the rules. And it slipped away within like a lap. And that's so fucking shitty. So shitty. And then the Mercedes wasn't as great. So that loss was followed by like mediocre performances from his team, and he moved teams with the hopes that things would be better, and it's probably worse, and it's just like from worse to worse for Lewis. And I'm just like really hoping next year is going to be good, really hoping. Also, Toto did make a shady comment about the fact that he tried for years to get Lewis Hamilton into a suit, and Lewis would just wear, as Toto put it, whatever it is he wears or something like that. And then he's like, and then his first day at Ferrari, he puts on a suit and takes that picture in front of the house, Enzo's house, or the factory, whatever. And it's like one of the most like photos ever, which I find funny what Toto is salty about. There's some things that he just like really can't let go. He's like still friends with Lewis. He's like, we moved on. We're great friends, but he's still salty. Coming back super fast to the Chucky thing. This week in Abu Dhabi, when Max got pole, Zach Brown made a comment that Chucky did it. He hates him. He hates him so much. All right, lap 3, trackside in Abu Dhabi. So the media generally does a lot of nonsense things and asks stupid questions, but the way they like the things they put the top 3 contenders for the Drivers' Championship through this week is borderline abusive. The questions they were asked, like, what are they supposed to answer? One of the questions, I think, was, who do you think is going to win? They asked all the drivers this, but they asked these 3. They're like, who do you think is going to win the Drivers' Championship? And there's just silence. No one is picking up their mic. They're all like the 3, Lando, Oscar, and Max are just staring back at the media. And finally, Lando rolls his eyes, picks up his mic, and goes, we're obviously all going to say ourselves. So let's move on. I think he said, I think he actually said we're obviously all going to say each other, but I think he meant ourselves. But anyway, it was quite funny. Another thing is Max was asked how he feels about potentially winning it, and Max was like, not really bothered. It's exactly the same, and I already have 4 of those at home, so And Lando and Oscar are laughing. Lando and Oscar asked a lot about the potential team orders. Oscar was like, well, I'm still in it. We haven't really talked about it. They definitely talked about it after interviews, I think, just so they are able to say we haven't talked about it yet. Lando made a slightly shady comment saying that, like, if it was him, he would give up the spot because that's just the kind of person he is, which made me laugh because in the past, there have been moments where Lando has given up position, but I really don't think if the roles were reversed, he'd give up position in this case. And when he says it's just the kind of person I am, it's not because he's nice, which is what he's implying there, and that Oscar should do it because that's a nice thing to do. That's not why Lando has given it up in the past. It's because he's been unable to say no to team orders, which is what Max excels in. one of the many things he excelled in. Anyway, they also made them go through some like additional ceremony thing ahead of the national anthem where they were all standing ahead of everyone else. It was just so dramatic and intense. And like, I don't think any of these questions were necessary. Like, I understand making a bit of more of a hoopla because it's been years, I think over a decade since we last had 3 drivers in contention for the championship in the last race. But let's relax and not ask dumb questions. Like, what are they supposed to say to who do you think is going to win? It's dumb. What are you supposed to say? Like, what will this mean to you? I don't know. It'll mean a lot. Like, what are you supposed to say? And incredibly, now that I've shat all over the media, an incredibly random move that I have never seen anyone do and did not expect to ever see anyone do was Ollie Bierman handed out little goodie bags to the F1 press. And it had like stickers and a Christmas card and a little teddy bear because Ollie's nickname is like, he's referred as a teddy bear because I think Bierman, whatever, which is very cute and very wholesome. But like, I'm just like trying to imagine a scenario where we read in the news that like Max Verstappen handed out goodie bags to the F1 press, and it's making me laugh because I can't imagine Max, but really any of the drivers being like, let's thank the media. We love them. But it was cute that Ollie did it. Maybe he hasn't been around enough to really feel the brunt and the irritation with the media in the same way that the rest of them do. Also, side note, Max's parents were not there. He mentioned during one of the press races, during one of the press conferences that they canceled their tickets long ago because he's like, well, first of all, no one knew I was going to be in contention. My dad's rallying in Africa somewhere, and I forgot what his mom's doing. But everyone was trying to make it like a sad thing, but like, parents aren't going to go to every single work event. And also the way he phrased it, he was like, well, they already canceled their tickets. It's not like they can come. I understand Yoss not coming because he's like in a competition, but like, it's not like they can't afford to book a last minute flight. But like, I also don't think he was bothered with it. If he had won, it probably would have bothered him, but he didn't. So I think it was fine. Also, back to like weird things that they were forced to do. They were being interviewed before I don't know, it was the 3 of them being interviewed on the track. I think it was before the driver's parade. And they were like, can you guys all shake hands before we move on? And all of them started laughing because it's such an awkward request. And Oscar was like a 3-way handshake. And Max was like, is this a forced handshake? But he was joking, and he like quickly like shook Lando's and Oscar's hand, and then Oscar and Lando shook hands. It was rather funny and odd. Very, very odd. All right. Some of the celebrities that were present in Abu Dhabi, there were quite a few considering we're in Abu Dhabi. Benson Boone was there. He gave out the pole position Pirelli tire after qualifying, and he also got a hot lap for Max Verstappen, which like, I don't know how he scored that. I don't know what he had to do to get a hot lap with Max of all people. I don't often see Max giving out hot laps. But that was fun. And he also had a quick reunion with Pierre Gasly because Pierre started one of his very like much earlier music videos when they were at, I think, the Mexican Grand Prix several years ago, which was cute. Ana de Armas was there. She waved the checker flag. She also visited Ferrari and Williams, I think. I'm kind of starting to think that she's going to be... I heard rumors there was an F1 movie sequel. Not really sure what the sequel can be. I mean, at this point, Brad Pitt will be dead. His character is so old, there's no way he's going to be racing. But Ana de Armas, there was a picture of her inspecting Lewis's wheel, and he was like explaining to her. And so she loves to do her own stunts. So part of me is wondering if she might be like the next sequel will be about a female driver or something like that. But if there is a sequel, and if she's in it, and if that's why she was inspecting the wheel, all of this has been like intense conjecture. Don't take anything I said seriously. But she also was at the Williams garage and got a picture with Alex Albon. Katy Perry was there, and there was a clip of her standing in front of the giant poster of all the drivers and pointing at Charles and being like, what's this one's name? I mean, a lot of people online are annoyed that they're inviting people. Like, I don't know if she was invited or if she just wanted to go, but like, you could do a little homework. Or at least pretend like you know what's going on a little bit. Not being like, which one is this one? Charles, what? But noted that he was the first driver she pointed at. Emma Ratajkowski was there. And if you remember, Emma Ratajkowski is famous for, where that's not what she's famous for, but it's what she's famous for in the F1 world, which is wearing the Yuki Tsunoda t-shirt. And her and Jason Statham were visiting him particularly. And Jason, like, oh my God, the way he embraced Yuki and then like held his face within his hands, it was so cute. And I'm so sad that Yuki won't be on the grid next year. But it all started with Yuki saying if anyone was going to play him in a movie, it'd be Jason Statham, because their similarities are uncanny. Made me laugh. And also Emma Ratajkowski met Jason Statham in that moment, and then they all took a picture together. And I just love that this is the collection of fans, celebrity fans, that Yuki has accumulated, and it's Jason Statham and Emma Ratajkowski. Anyway, on the grid walk, Brundle's last grid walk of the season, Thierry Henry was there and Micah Richards, who are both footballers. And Micah's pretty funny and charismatic. And Brundle initially walks up to Micah's like, oh, Micah's here. And then he starts talking to Thierry Henry. And Micah walks away, and as he's walking away, he like tells Brundle, you look beautiful, and then like walks off. And Brundle's like, well, I'm talking to you too. He wasn't. And then Brundle finds him later, and he's like, who do you want to win? And Micah was like, after watching Drive to Survive, I wanted Lando to win, but then I met Max Verstappen at an event, and he's like the nicest guy ever. So now I just want everyone to win. What about you? Which I don't think Brundle's ever been asked in the grid walk before. And Brundle was like, he had the audacity. He had the audacity to say, I don't care. We all know Brundle cares, and we all know he wants Lando Norris to win. At least say, like, I can't say on the air who I want to win, but like, they all deserve it. No, he literally said, I don't care. A bigger lie has never been told. Ronaldinho, the soccer player, football player, whatever, was there, and Brundle tried to talk to him. He's like, I don't really speak English very well, even though we just watched him talk to Yannick Sinner, who I doubt they speak the same language. I think one speaks Portuguese and one speaks Italian. So he kind of walked away, and Yannick Sinner talked to him a bit. His girlfriend was there, and she's actually the ex-girlfriend of Mick Schumacher. So this is home turf for her. Gordon Ramsay was there, but I don't think Brundle ever made it to him. But he did say on the air, last time I called him my comfort blanket, and then I realized that no one in the world has ever referred to Gordon as comfort, which made me laugh. Also, the Glambot guy was there, you know, the one who does like all the award shows and stuff. He was there. And Aston Martin posted a video of Lance posing for the Glambot with the audio of Kris Jenner going, go Kylie, go. You're doing amazing. And it's just Lance Stroll standing there for the Glambot. Like, he's not moving. He's just standing in one place looking at the camera, which, if you know what the Glambot is, it's like a slow-mo like video almost, but like you have like 5 seconds, so people usually do like one movement and then it looks really cool, slow down. Lance's is just going to be like a really slow blink. He's going to look like the sloth from Zootopia, where it's just like him blinking for like 3 seconds, and it's going to be really funny. Also, I talked a little bit earlier about some lasts this year, but we're saying goodbye to our best rookie class in a long time. It's Kimi, Isaac, Ollie, and Gabby, and they are such a funny foursome. I really wish they were doing a video similar to what they did with George, Alex, and Lando in 2019, where it was like a rookie off, because this group would do so well in that context. Also, there was another video of the F1 admin, social admin, asking each of the drivers to describe the season in one word. Kimmy gave like the longest explanation ever, and the caption was just putting a hyphen between every word he was saying, which was quite funny. Alex said that he's most looking forward to not talking to the admin again. But my favorite part was he asked Isaac what if he could describe the season ending in one word. And Isaac said promotion. And then they put the little black sunglass emoji over Isaac's eyes. It was so funny. Isaac is like going quite confident into this. Nico Rosberg said again on air that he he's said it every week that that Isaac should say no if Red Bull comes calling, like fervently say no, no, no. And I agree with Nico, but like, cannot Isaac really say no? Not really. And also he looks like he's kind of looking forward to it. And he is right. He said in the media that he's kind of entering with a blank slate. I think I talked about this last week, that like Max will also be fresh to this car. He's not going to be as used to it. So it's not going to be the same experience that the last like 12 drivers have had. Or however many there have been joining Max at Red Bull. He will be more on even footing with Max than others were able to be in the past, which is a plus for him. And also, he's going into it regardless, knowing that Max will be faster than him, at least for the first few weeks. But he's probably right. He has a better chance than the rest of them had. And obviously, we want nothing but the best for adorable little Isaac Hadjar. He also finished second in the standings in terms of rookies. So Kimi finished 7th in the driver standings. Isaac finished 12th. Ollie finished 13th. If we're calling Liam a rookie, he finished 14th. Gabby finished 19th, but he did have the shittest car. And then Franco and Jack Doohan got no points. But Isaac and Kimi had the best season, and so I think it's warranted that they're going into next year driving 2 of the best cars from the youngest of the drivers. And then we have 1 new rookie next year driving for Racing Bulls, Arvind, I think his name is. So it's kind of lonely that he's coming into this solo as a rookie and doesn't have the same experience coming in with a whole group of people he knows, but I'm sure everyone, and if not everyone, at least Max Verstappen will embrace him with open arms. All right, that's it for the digital warm-up. On to analysis. Okay, on to analysis. So quickly on pre-race, Arthur Leclerc participated in FP1, which caused quite a bit of amusing chaos. Gabby asked on the radio at one point, who's that Ferrari? And his engineer goes, Leclerc. Old Leclerc. And then Max gets told by GP that Leclerc Jr. is ahead of him, which Max was like, it makes me laugh when you call him Leclerc Jr. But moving on to quali, Max got pole and got a little help from his friends. Fernando and Yuki gave him little toes to help him over the line. So the starting grid is as follows: Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, George Russell, Charles Leclerc, Fernando Alonso, Gabby Bortoleto, Esteban Ocon, Isaac Hadjar, Yuki Tsunoda, Ollie Bierman, Carlos Sainz, Liam Lawson, Kimi, Lance, Lewis, Alex, Nico, Pierre, and Franco. All right, moving on to the race. And I'm going to do things a little bit differently this time. I'm going to start with the results of the race. The results of the race are as follows: Max in first, followed by Oscar, Lando, Charles, George, Fernando Alonso, Esteban, Lewis, Nico, Lance, Gabby, Ollie, Carlos, Yuki, Kimi, Alex, Isaac, Liam, Pierre, and Franco. So not much change, but a little bit. I do also want to note, before we dive into analysis of strategy and like what happened, is that this is the first race this season that McLaren ran split garages and didn't share data between each other, which I think is important to note because that was definitely supposed to set a tone for them valuing each driver's race independently. But anyway, the most exciting part of this race was the very start when Oscar overtook Lando in a very crazy move round the outside and secured himself P2. At that moment, everyone was like, is McLaren actually letting them race? And in theory, they did let them race. But as the race went on, I personally think that there might have been that Oscar overtaking was part of a discussed strategy in advance to make sure that Lando secured driver's champion, because letting Oscar overtake Lando, not that they planned for him to overtake Lando, but I feel like the possibility was discussed and acceptable because with Oscar ahead of Lando, he can put pressure on Max. And Lando doesn't need to win this race, although I'm sure everyone wants to win the race, but he just needs third. And that was the goal, to get him to finish in third at the minimum. And I also think it's fine for, at this point, with Lando actually leading the race and with his real only, unless something wild happens, contender being Max, for them to prioritize Lando. I just like, again, wish they said it instead of pretending that they're all fine and dandy and like team rules and stuff. But anyway, after this move, basically, it was really all about strategy calls. So like, let's get into that. So Oscar started on hards, which meant that he was going to be doing a longer stint from the get-go. His overtake on Lando was extra impressive, by the way, because overtaking on hards, so like within the first lap, is not, especially when Lando was on mediums, is not an easy move because his tires aren't as warm or as worn in. And so it was a good move from Oscar overall. It just wasn't like, I really think the issue came down to the fact that Max got pole. If Max was further behind and like Oscar got pole or Lando got pole, Max was going to gun it and put pressure on them. And then there was a higher chance of Lando finishing fourth or something. But the order that this happened and the way the points like ended up falling, like this ended up working really well for Lando. But it didn't always feel that way. When Lando ended up pitting, he had to overtake quite a few people, which he did with like relative ease up until he got to Yuki, who was in fourth at this point. And Yuki was like committed to doing his part in this race and defending for Max Verstappen. I guess he might have gotten a little over the top. So what ended up happening was that Yuki was sort of, he was meandering a little bit on track. The way Croft and Brendan were talking about it, they were implying that he was like zigzagging like the whole length of the whole width of the track, which he wasn't really doing. And then also he was zigzagging, and then when Lando went to overtake him, Yuki basically pushed him off track. But Lando still stuck the overtake and went ahead into P3. So he was also under the investigation for leaving the track and gaining an advantage, which historically, that has always been a penalty in some capacity. Regardless of whether you were forced off track or not, you still gain an advantage by going off track. And it almost felt like, I thought that McLaren was going to tell him to give the place back just in case, because he was still going to be able to overtake Yuki anyways, but they didn't, which was kudos to them because FIA let it go. They like were investigating and then they let it go. That doesn't make total sense to me because historically they've always given a penalty in that case. I do think the whole situation was a little bit gray, both for Yuki and for Lando. I thought he was going to get a penalty, but he did not, which really saved the championship for him, because if he had gotten the 5-second penalty, it would have been a lot harder for him to finish higher than fourth position. And also I must, maybe I am like overly biased because I haven't seen as much discussion about this as I was anticipating seeing about it. I thought, and maybe it's just because if this was any other race, there would be more discussion about it, but because Lando won the championship, there's just like not. McLaren, imagine if McLaren still got disqualified for something wrong with the car, like plank wear or something. That would be horrifying. Luckily, there were no penalties. It doesn't seem like there's been any disqualifications post-race. Lando has won and retained his world championship, and I think that's the way it's supposed to be. So after this incident with Yuki and Lando's already in P3. Oscar is leading the race, and he's supposed to pit at a certain point because his hards are really starting to go. It's been like a long, long stint. And he's literally just about to pit when Ferrari brings Stroll in. And at this point, McLaren basically has no choice but to bring Lando immediately in, because then they're protecting themselves from the undercut that Charles was attempting, because he's right behind Lando. And by pitting earlier, he would be on faster tires. So they have to hold off Oscar's pit so they can pit Lando so that he can cancel out the attempted undercut from Ferrari. I think it was at this point that I started put my tinfoil hat on and was like, these fair calls, where it's equal between both team members, McLaren is making actually feels like very subtle prioritization of Lando. At one point, Oscar gets told to push more, that he can push more for Max. And he's only being told that because they need more clean air for Lando behind him. Lando's pit stop being prioritized over Oscar's pit stop. Subtle. All of these are incredibly subtle and could go either way, but there's been enough of these subtle in one way versus the other where I'm like, is this a coincidence, or do they lean more towards Lando Norris? Which I just wish they would admit. I think that's what's annoying me more than anything, is like this like farce of being like papaya rules and fully fair for both drivers, but like you can't really be. It's like really hard. But anyway, that was really it when it came to the race. Nothing else happened with the top three. Around 10 laps before the end, Max asked Charles if he was at all close to catching Lando, to which he was told that they were pretty much even on pace. And I think that's when Max accepted that he was not winning this driver's championship. And that was that. There was stuff that happened in the back, but it was so like a non-event. There were a lot of penalties towards the end of the race, so a lot of people got penalized for leaving track limits. Apparently it was very windy. There was a few checkered flags waved. There was other penalties for unsafe release, something along those. There was like a lot of random penalties this race. All right, so let's talk about Max Verstappen. Honestly, Max was the epitome of grace and leadership, which for some continues to be like a total shock. And I don't know why they're expecting him to throw a tantrum. Max has been very consistent with his tantrums, and that's when he gets upset if he or the team doesn't do everything in their power to give the best performance, if he feels that the FIA is being unjust, and if he feels that those things are affecting how he performs. When things just don't go his way, when he's done the best he could, when the team's done the best they could, Max is chill. Max was so chill. His radio message at the end was so cute because like it's like cutting to GP sitting at the pit wall with his head in his hands. Like he looks devastated, honestly. And on the radio, he's like, "You've done a superb drive. You did everything you possibly could. We're sorry that we like let you down," like all this stuff. And Max literally just says that they shouldn't be disappointed because he's not. And he's so proud of the whole team, particularly of their performance in the second half of the season and everything they've done. And they've done the best they could, and they should all be really proud. And like, that's such a nice, it's just wonderful to see the growth and maturity, because 2020, 2021, Max prior to 2021 wasn't necessarily like that at all times. He was a much angrier kid, or had much less composure over his emotions. And I honestly think he's fine that he didn't win. I genuinely think he's okay with it, because he really did do everything within his power to get as close as he possibly could. 2 points. And in addition to Max's like very mature outlook, I think we can say the same thing about the team. Everyone assumed that Max's strategy was going to be to hold everyone up and to cause like a huge DRS train. George literally said in the press, he was like, obviously this is what Max is going to do. Max is just going to let them all, he's just going to zoom ahead. This isn't a regular race. Like he's going to do everything he can. And Max didn't. And I think that shows a lot. They just raced the best they could and treated it like a regular race where they're just trying to win the race. And that's what they did. No tricks, no panics, no anything. And I don't know if this is something that we can attribute to the new leadership, because I truly never associated the intense culture at Red Bull with Christian Horner. I attributed mostly to Dr. Helmut Marko. I know Christian played a part in it, but like it really seems that since he stepped down, since Laurent Mekies took over, there's been a huge shift in the culture. It was a very calm approach to this whole situation, which I really appreciated from the team. Like there's just growth all around at Red Bull, and it's really nice to see. And I guess apologize to Helmut Marko, because I really thought he was the problem, and I guess he wasn't the main problem because he's still there. Also, after the race, I'm not sure anyone was happier for Lando than Max, including Lando. He walked up to him, grinning from ear to ear as if he just like won his own championship. He was excited for him in the cool down room. He literally dumped his entire bottle of champagne on Lando's head during the podium. And we know that like if there's anything Max Verstappen will do, it will be to celebrate someone's first, whether it's their first driver's championship, their first podium, their first whatever. He is there celebrating people, which again, I love to see. And I feel like people really don't give him enough credit for who he is, and like write him off as like this mean, angry, petty guy. And he's none of those things. He was just like truly a vision of calm, cool, and collected, and love to see it. Oscar was also incredibly chill. We know that he's really good at looking chill in difficult moments, but we have seen him slip up a couple of times when he was truly so upset that he couldn't even hide that he was sad. But I think he's had this whole week to come to terms with the fact that he was not winning this drivers' championship, and something truly crazy had to happen for him to be even in contention. And so, like, even though there was a shot and he still went for that shot, I think he was able to work through a lot of the disappointment throughout the week. So it was minimized today, and he was able to present a much calmer, collected front than I'm sure he probably was feeling. His radio message was also very gracious. He thanked the team. He congratulated Lando on a great fight, and then he had a lot of fun this season. I'm not sure how much fun he had, but like he did it was very gracious. He was also relatively subdued in the cool down room. Like, him and Max exchanged some strategy chats. He asked Max why he didn't hold everyone up, but really it was just very subdued in the cool down room, but it didn't feel like tense. Like, it felt like they were all just exhausted and like relieved that it was over. And that just like Max was the one who felt the chattiest at times. They all just Lando seemed exhausted. I did sob quite hard. I was already sobbing, but I sobbed harder when Lando's mom bounded over to Oscar to give him like what looked like the most warm and comforting hug in Park Firm. And I just thought that was a lovely gesture. And I also thought it was magnanimous of Oscar to walk over and congratulate and hug Lando's entire family as they stood there. There was also a very cute moment of Oscar being hugged by what looked like all of his sisters, just being hugged by like 4 other women or 3 other women. And I love that. I love that they were there for him. And I'm glad he wasn't totally solo, because I think losing this is probably a lot harder for him than it is for Max. But not probably, definitely harder for him than it is for Max. All right, now let's talk about Lando. I have not made it a secret that I wasn't crazy about Lando winning this championship. However, I do fully think that he has earned it from his performance, particularly in the second half of the season. And I also think that I've seen him grow. I still have opinions about how he behaves in the media and all of that stuff, but I think in terms of his driving and his mentality on track, we've genuinely seen his growth, and he's become more mature and more, like, everyone was saying, Lando's going to bottle it in the first turn. He sort of did bottle it, but he didn't let that rattle him. He knew where he had to finish and how he had to finish, and he did that. And I think that probably Lando of yore would have panicked being overtaken like that in the first turn and thought he had to win the race and would have done something crazy, and it would have been badly. But he was calm, steady, and that really shows growth in him. That I think has been one of my biggest critiques of him and his driving, is that it felt like he wasn't learning from his mistakes. And the driver that won the championship today looked like someone who's grown and learned a lot. So I will give him his flowers. He's totally earned this. And also, anyone who says that he shouldn't have been crying is insane, because why wouldn't you cry? Who's not crying at this? We were all crying. I immediately started crying the second he crossed the checkered flag, which I was not expecting. And I just kept crying harder from that point onward. His engineer's voice breaking on the radio while he congratulated him. Lando literally sobbing on the radio, and then every 2 seconds being like, oh, I'm not crying, sorry. And then like crying more. And he also made like the classic Lando sound, you know, the laugh that's like really high pitched, like, I can't do it. But like he was just like a lot of Lando noises coming from the radio as he tried to formulate words, which he did. He congratulated everyone. His interview after was also very diplomatic. He said that it's an honor to race with Max and Oscar. Max has done this so many times before. It's an honor to be able to race him in this way. Oscar will be champion one day. Like he was very composed and good in terms of how Lando could be in media. But him crying on the radio was so wholesome. And then my tears dried right the fuck up as Zach Brown got on, and his like with his like the most frat bro energy possible. I didn't think he could get more frat bro, but he did. And he was like, oh, excuse me, is this the driver's championship hotline? And Lando just made garbled noises. And then Zach was like, I'm so proud of you, good job. And then it panned to him like leaping out of the pit wall, just like so frat bro. And I can't. dries your tears right up. But it's fine. As soon as Zach Brown left my screen, I started crying again. He was immediately congratulated by Max, again with the widest smile I've ever seen. Then Oscar gave him a hug. Then finally he got to talk to his parents, who both hugged him. His mom was so happy. She kept like peering into his visor. He hugged his girlfriend, which was also very cute. He looked so happy to have them all there, and it just made me happy. I think his siblings were there, his manager, all the mechanics were just like there were so many hugs going on. And George came over and hugged him, and then Carlos came over, and we had a very cute Carlando moment. By the way, George posted within like an hour of the race ending a picture of him and Lando in their tween era, being like, congrats on winning. And then Carlos also posted, but he posted a whole carousel of pictures of them together. It was great. I love seeing everyone celebrating him, because Fernando came over as well. Don't want to miss him out. And then I saw Lewis in the media pen coming over and congratulating Lando, saying he knew he could do it. And whatever personal feelings I might have about Lando aside, seeing someone achieve their dreams and like be so celebrated and loved by everyone is just such a nice moment. And I'm very happy for Lando. All right, the driver of the day was officially Max Verstappen, which again, like the last few races, for sure, he had an incredible drive, and also how it fits into the rest of his season. All of that is incredible, and he definitely deserves his flowers. And I'm not saying he's not driver of the day, but I do think that the driver of the day should have gone to Charles, who literally out of nowhere was such a pain in Lando's butt this entire race. Like, there was an added pressure. Like everyone realized that the only way Lando wasn't winning this championship was on Charles. What Charles was able to pull off in this race would determine whether Lando was champion or not. And he was a constant stressor from beginning to end. He was like within DRS range of Lando the whole time. And I just think he deserves his flowers. I think he did a great job. And I'm really hoping he has better equipment next year to really show us what he's made of. And as he said, Lando, we could be world champions, I said. He did say we, so you're next, Charles. All right, Dick in the Box. Today, specifically, I don't think there's a Dick in the Box. I think that there is a seasonal Dick in the Box, and the first one is the FIA. I think they need to get much more consistent with their calls, and they just annoy me. And the second Dick in the Box, I think McLaren really needs to commit to something and be transparent about what they're committing to, because to me, they're operating under this like illusion of papaya rules, and I think a lot of them do think they're doing papaya rules, but I do think they lean, specifically Zach Brown, but I do think as an organization, they do lean towards Lando Norris, and he's been raised by them, and he's like the baby. He's like what Charles is to Ferrari, Lando is to McLaren. Like, there's a lot there for them to favor Lando, and I don't know if it's the rumors are true about Mark Webber insisting there not be a D2 in Oscar's contract, so they're literally not allowed to do anything but papaya rules, but they're pretending to be so generous and equal and all this stuff, and I just don't think they are. And what annoys me more than anything else. And also the other thing about them is what has been my biggest complaint about Lando in the past is that I don't think it's true anymore, but like learning from his mistakes. McLaren, we need to see them learn and grow from the decisions they've made throughout this season and become a team worthy of being a two-time constructor world champion in this last era of F1. Although the McLaren's racing director after the race said that if there's one thing McLaren's good at, it's preparing. And I'm like, yeah, it worked out for you well today, but like we've not seen you be well prepared for anything this season. Like you've been quite underprepared for scenarios, specifically Las Vegas. If we're gonna like name names, like that specifically most recently comes to mind of completely underprepared. Also, the strategy call was it last week when everyone made one call and they made a completely opposite call. Yeah, it was last week. Like, you call that being prepared? You were prepared to be an idiot? Okay. Mostly I'm concerned about what this means for Oscar next year. Again, this doesn't take away from the fact that Lando deserved this win. I think any three of them had won, they would have deserved the win. There is no unfair winner here. but I think I'm not taking away from Lando winning and that he deserves it, but I do really want this to be the launch of Oscar's villain era and for him to throw the papaya rules to the wayside if they don't do it themselves and like be for himself. I need him to fight for himself. This needs to be the new regulations era needs to be the launch of Oscar's villain era, because I can't take this anymore. Like, and he should be so fed up with it. Mark Webber's definitely fed up with it. So like, I'm really hoping we see a new attitude from Oscar in the new year. Speaking of next year, there's a lot of uncertainty across the grid about what next year holds. And I know like every single driver cannot wait to get rid of this car in this period of F1 and are all hoping that the new regulations will make driving more fun and more interesting for them. And hopefully it'll make the races more interesting for us, because we've had so many stinkers this year. Yes, it's impressive, honestly, that we had such a nail biter of a championship fight to the very end, considering how boring so many of the races were this year. All right. So I guess that's kind of it for Abu Dhabi and for the 2025 season. What a year. I will be back. This isn't the end of me before the next 2026 season starts. As usual, I will be doing the Secret Santa video and probably recapping some other things that happened during the winter break, probably midway between now and the next season starting. Thank you for joining me for the 2025 season. It's been so much fun, and I really hope next year brings us as much excitement and joy. So until 2026, box.